Hi everyone, hope you're all well. So, here is part 7, finally. Sorry it took so long, but I've been super busy actually, which I really can't complain about because it's been great. I opened up fake mon commissions on my Instagram, so, you know, if any of you were interested in that, feel free to have a nose. But as a result, my own designs have taken a bit of a backseat and it took me a bit longer to have enough to put together for a video. So, sorry about that. But enough with that, let's just get straight into having a look at the next bunch of Pokemon. This will just be a simple video with a few designs, but the next one will be about the last 4 gym leaders, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. One I meant to include in my last video and I completely forgot about was the absolutely necessary Pika clone. But I had a really good base for that, inspired by several comments I got mentioning the golden hairs of Rathlin. I knew from the get-go that I wanted a rabbit/hare as the basis of this Pokemon, but the concept fully fleshed out with these gorgeous little animals. While hares do display a variety of fur colour, there's a bunch of them on Rathlin Island, found northeast of County Antrim, that have a fully golden blonde coat and blue eyes. This genetic characteristic seems to be unique to this island and gives them this really striking appearance that you don't find elsewhere in the country. I also liked the idea of contrasting its design with its abilities. This Pokemon can move extremely fast, but I wanted to bring in some chubby Pikachu vibes from its early official artwork, just for an extra level of cuteness. Its name comes from the Irish for rabbit, Kenine, and the word keen meaning eager or impatient. So this is Kenine, the energized Pokemon, electric and normal type. Kenine's movements are lightning fast. They charge up so much electricity in their bodies from this speed that at night they might appear as zooming lights. They're super popular with girls and women for their cuteness, though very few of them have the patience to sit still as they're being shown off. They like to taunt wild Lopummel, effortlessly dodging their punches with blinding agility and slapping them back with electrically charged jabs. Up next we have Balladry's first ice type. So with this one I actually had the evolution in mind before the first form, so that's the order I think makes more sense to show them in. I knew I wanted something based on the Shookalook, which if you watched part 4 where I introduced 4 of the gym leaders, specifically Sheila, I mentioned it as a figure of immense supernatural powers, seemingly deciding when winter arrives and ends in Ireland, as well as being able to take the forms of a woman of any age. I wanted to capture a bit of the image of this old woman who's bent over and shuffling along, wrapped in her big shawl, so you mightn't immediately see her face. But once she angles it up, she has this enormous and really unsettling grin, as if she knows something you don't and is laughing at your ignorance. What does look like a shawl is actually just a mass of gathered snow and ice crystals, and she potters along very slowly like a stiff old lady. Her name comes from Shook, meaning frost, Shookalook, meaning witch, and the two mashed together kind of incorporate the words shook, like from the cold, and look, which I guess could reference her ability to see things that you can't, like her psychic typing would allow her to do. So this is Shookalook, the Ice Witch Pokemon. Shookalook is always cackling to itself, its unnerving smile perpetually frozen in place. It sees all misfortunes that are due to befall an individual, and if a person is lucky, they'll be able to catch a glimpse of one in the facets of her ice crystals. When snowfall is particularly thick, many folks hurrying home might confuse this Pokemon for a poor, lost old lady, shuffling out in the cold and completely disorientated. The truth is likely that any blizzard is actually caused by her presence, and those who go out of their way to help her will be lost in the storm. The pre-evolved form is pretty simple to explain. I just needed a smaller version of the previous design. I wasn't originally going to have this be a 2-stage line, but once I came up with Shookalook, I did feel like it needed a previous form. So I essentially just shrunk her into cute little proportions, and I know that's super lazy, but I actually think it worked out kind of well. I gave it a less smirky look and a bigger bow, and then when I was trying to come up with how it could use its psychic powers, I thought that it would make sense if it hadn't quite gained control over them yet and instead only gets short flashes. So here we have Foorsooth, from the Irish for meaning cold and forsooth, which is an old English saying meaning in truth or indeed, also from a soothsayer, which is a person who claims to be able to tell the future. Forsooth are constantly distracted by unclear visions and feelings of déjà vu. They'll often stop in the middle of an activity to stare into space as if they've just remembered something. What they're experiencing are vague flashes of a future, whether their own or of someone else's nearby. Next up is a Pokemon that I kept procrastinating on because I knew I'd have to include it at some point, but I had no idea exactly what would be the best way to design it. Of course, I'm talking about the Leprechaun, which I would probably say might come first in the line of Irish folkloric creatures that people would associate with Ireland, ahead of maybe even the Banshee. There's also the fact that it's kind of become a weird little mascot for the country for people not from here, especially through St. Patrick's Day, when a lot of people obviously dress up as one. So, here's a cute little tidbit for you. Leprechauns aren't or shouldn't be associated with drinking or alcohol. That connection actually applies to a similar creature called the Cluricaun, who basically does just that, and lives in breweries. So there you go. In terms of appearance, leprechauns would vary depending on where in Ireland they came from, but the green outfit might have come about in tandem with the eventual correlation of Ireland to the colour green. They're also known for having immense wealth, thus they're crocks of gold. They can be either good or bad, and sometimes they're cobblers. I wanted my Pokemon design to be based on them, but not in a way that was super obvious. I mean, obviously, ye can decide if I manage that. I knew I wanted certain elements like the buckled shoes, the green colouring, and the love of gold, without it looking like Golden Go. But that I also wanted it to clearly be like a weird fairy man thing, kind of like the region's Mr. Mime. A little unsettling, but maybe a little cute in a really strange way. The name is from Leprechaun, of course, Luckapawn, and the whole thing sounds a bit like to look upon, or in my mind that this Pokemon is always looking upon or admiring its gathered treasures or those of others. This is then Luckapawn, the avarice Pokemon, fairy and steel type. Luckapawn are constantly hunting for golden coins, both to collect as well as trade with each other. They're fiercely protective of their troves and try to wear as much of it as they can, which in turn protects them as a sort of primitive armour. They're generally good-natured, but if they find that even a single piece is missing from their collection, they'll fly into an uncontrollable rage, during which they've been known to ransack homes in their search for it. They despise snag pies. I'd love if in Pokemon games, the Pokemon that have actual connections or lore relating to each other would have more flavour text or minor effects in the overworld. Like, for example, the fact that Luckapawn hates snag pies. I think it'd be really fun if you had both in your party and Luckapawn was holding an item, that the snag pie could sometimes steal it if it wasn't already holding something. Little details like that I find would make the Pokemon and the world feel a little bit more alive. Now I wanted to finish off with something a little more grand. Not legendary level of grandeur, but a rare Pokemon that might be like Chansey levels of hard to find. I knew I wanted to design something based on the myth of Oisín and Niamh, who lived in the land of youth, Tír na nÓg. To keep it as brief as I can, Oisín was part of the Fianna and the son of the legendary warrior Fionn McCool. One day he was out with the lads and from across the sea they saw a beautiful woman riding a golden horse running over the waves towards them. She was Niamh Kinor, or golden-haired Niamh, and she and Oisín immediately fell in love, so she invited him to come back to Tír na nÓg with her. He does, stays what feels like a few years, and eventually wants to go back to visit his father and friends. And Niamh warns him not to dismount the horse when he gets there. And it's an Irish story, so he obviously does exactly that. And since it's actually been like 300 years since he left, he immediately ages and dies. But who cares about Oisín or Niamh? The fake man is based on the horse. The idea of this majestic Pokemon that gallops freely over the water just makes my long gone inner horse girl very happy. I kept the full golden colouring as the shiny, so the regular colours would still look at least a little bit more normal. Like I said, this isn't a legendary or anything, so it couldn't look too complex, but I thought that maybe the gold streak in the mane and tail would be a good enough nod. I imagine this Pokemon being pretty far out at sea, you'd have to surf to the middle of nowhere before they start appearing. And even then, like I also said, they'd have a very low encounter rate. It's also inspired by the nickname white horses given to the caps of waves. The name comes from vast, like the sea, steed, and the Irish for tide, Teeda. So we have Vasteeda, the wave crest Pokemon, water and psychic. These are rare Pokemon, found out at sea where the mainland is no longer visible. Their psychic powers allow them to gallop over the water's surface as easily as they would on land. It's said that Vasteeda have knowledge of secret islands, only accessible to them and those who are blessed enough to be allowed to ride them. Other tales say that possessing even just a single strand from their golden streak lengthens your life significantly. And once again, we've come to the end of the video. Sorry it probably wasn't the most riveting, but as simple as they are, I really love these designs, and I think it's good to have that mixture of plain and straightforward with the more in-depth and complex concepts. Let me know if any of them would join your balladry teams, and thank you so much for watching. As always, I really appreciate you keeping up with this series. All the best, bye!